The wait is over. Today we are revealing the worst kept money guy secret.
Brian, I am so excited about this one because we are finally going to answer a question that we've been dodging for a while. We've been avoiding it and dodging it and avoiding it and dodging it. And today we finally get to come clean.
In my defense, I haven't been dodging it. It's just you guys keep thumping me in the ear, telling me, do not tell them anymore.
That's Reeby is you guys. That's
Reeby's the bad guy primarily. But it's true, guys. Today, we're actually giving you the details of my book. And I feel like this has been years in the making. I'm so excited. And I mean, I don't want to keep you guys waiting, but today we have a lot to share. We're going to show you the cover. We're going to show you the title. And we're going to give you some insight into what is actually going on, including the date that this actually comes out. So I guess without any more fanfare, Bo, go ahead and drop it on them.
All right, here it is, Brian. Tell them about it.
Yeah, the Millionaire Mission, this is something that has been built over my career. I think about, you guys love the financial order of operations. I mean, you know, if you haven't gone moneyguy.com/resources, you can get your own copy. But a lot of you guys, you need to know that this thing is my opportunity to hopefully impact the next generation. I think about the fact that my journey towards wealth building started with The Wealthy Barber, Millionaire Next Door, and those books just hit me so hard and lit a spark.
Your life,
they really did. They lit a spark within inside me. I really pray and I hope that the Millionaire Mission will actually have that exact impact on this generation as well.
All right, so that's the idea. Like, who should read the book? Like, who are you hoping that this book is going to hit? Like, who do you want to pick it up?
Yeah, this book, if I have my way about it, I want it to kind of impact everyone. And what I mean by that, I know that sounds crazy because you're supposed to choose your demo and stick to it, but in all reality, I'm hoping that the person who has the aspiration of becoming wealthy but knows absolutely nothing about money, this is going to be your shortcut to success, essentially the instruction manual for how to do money better. I think the person, even if they have 7 figures already behind them, they've had success, I even think this book is going to give you the tips and tricks. They'll be confirming, but also kind of let you fine-tune your skill set. And then anybody who's behind, and this is something I paid a lot of attention to when I was writing the book, was if you felt behind, how do I get you motivated and kind of inspired to not only get excited about the process, but also to catch up? I wrote it with that in mind as well.
I love it. And when you were writing this, how'd you come up with the ideas in the book? Like the things that you share, the things that you write about, where did it come from?
Yeah, it's not an autobiography, but I'm going to tell you, it has a lot of me in it. There's a part of me that's pretty insecure and nervous about that because you're going to see a lot about, you know, my childhood, what inspired each of the steps of the financial order of operations. I mean, it really is the origin story for where things came from. And I think that also another unique thing was that, but we manage, you know, wealthy families. I mean, we have been doing this. I mean, I've been managing money since the mid-90s. So we're quickly approaching 30 years. And you can't help but pick up things. I've had a front row seat to seeing what's created success and seeing where the overlap was. And I've tried to put every bit of that into the Millionaire Mission.
Okay, so if I'm the reader, right, and I'm going to read this book, what can I expect as I read through it? Like, 'cause I'm thinking about here's some stuff I'm going to take away. Here's some exciting things I want to know. What are the things that I can expect as I'm reading through this book? And by the way, I've already read the book, and it's freaking fantastic. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're curious, I did actually write this book, you know, because that was one of the things, like, you know, we were just out in Austin hanging out with Caleb Hammer, and I mentioned, hey, we got a big announcement coming out about this book, and he asked me right off the cuff. He was like, "Did you write it?" And I was like, "Wow!" So I guess people are going to ask that question, and I guess it makes sense because so many books are ghostwritten these days. But no, if you read this book, I have actually written this book. Now, I will tell you, when you see commas in the book, that is probably Daniel and Reeby and the editors.
He wrote the whole book,
but I
except
wrote
for the
book.
punctuation.
But the punctuation and some of the
it, yeah.
tweaks and stuff, obviously, I got a little help on that. But this book is from the heart. And I think that's what you'll see. I've already kind of alluded to the fact this is the origin story for the financial order of operations, hence the 9-step system to level up your finances. But it's also all the things that went into why each of these steps exist. I mean, I really tried to go as deep as I could to give people an understanding of the why, but then also, I mean, we didn't shortchange this thing. We did it in true money guy fashion. We show you the numbers. I mean, we nerd out on the stuff, but I tried to write it in a way that even if you are coming, like I said, at the beginning of your journey, you're going to feel like you were loved on in a way that this thing will hopefully light that fire. That's the biggest thing I want, is I really do want to change a generation. I know that a lot of you guys, I know there's a lot of teachers who watch this because they can spot the heart of my, the teacher in my heart, and they teach high school classes and other things. I really do hope that at some point this book does kind of end up in high school, college, and even graduates, that this is the book that you're like, man, what book can I give somebody to give them kind of a step ahead? And you think of Millionaire Mission.
I love it, Brian. One of my favorite things about you is you love giving away value. You love people having an experience or having something take place, and their immediate takeaways, holy cow, this is even more valuable than I thought it would be. This is so amazing. And a lot of people, even in the live chat right now, are like, holy cow, okay, it's coming out in May. It's coming out in May. It's a long wait. It's not here yet. When's it going to happen? I think maybe we're even forgetting to tell them a little something, because in true Brian fashion, we want to load you guys up for pre-ordering the book. So we're going to talk more about pre-order perks and some things that'll be happening for those who put pre-orders. But anything that you want to share or mention as it relates to that?
Okay, this is the part, because I feel like it's unfair to say we're going to load you up and not at least peek behind the curtain a little bit. And y'all know I'm horrible at keeping secrets. So at a minimum, and Reeby's going to kill me for this, but I at least have to share some of the brainstorming sessions and things we've talked about that are going to be perks for everybody who kind of takes advantage of getting in on the pre-order right now and in the following weeks. And here's the thing, we've talked about, we're going to figure out a way, if people want a signed version or my signature in their book, we're going to figure out a way to hook you up on that. Another thing that I think is fun is if you want to do a book club with Brian, essentially, with me, going through chapters.
Sign me up.
Well, think about it. I mean, because there's so many. Today, I even had to ask you guys. I was like, we're making this announcement, but I felt like even the story of how this book got done, where it went from self-publishing to a lot of internal, reflection on what that means with it not being in libraries and bookstores, and then the whole journey to getting a book deal. I mean, I have so many fun stories, because I feel like the way my life works is that I'm very active, but I also see it in a way that a storyteller would hopefully see it. And I think there's so many things that I could do with a book club to kind of let you get a little extra out of what the book can do. And then you guys know, when we do normal shows that we do live streams on, we answer questions at the end and we give away tumblers. And you guys lose your mind over the tumblers. So we decided, you know what could we do to get people incentivized to take action on buying Millionaire Mission? So we're going to come up with an exclusive merch store, and we're throwing out crazy ideas so that we can make this stuff affordable and very Rebe, I can see her. She's shaking her head. She's like,
I just keep looking over.
Don't tell anymore. Don't tell it.
No,
we don't have it all tied down, but I'm telling you, you want to, just like Bo said, overwhelming abundance. When we had our last Money Guy team meeting, one of the things I said, and I was like, after a while, I was like, we just need to embrace this, is that my mantra is overwhelming abundance on everything we do. That's why we have the abundance cycle. That's why we try to give away all the free resources. So if I can make you feel rewarded for taking this journey with us, I want to load you up with as much as we possibly can.
I love it. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to go to moneyguy.com/millionaire mission. And right there from the website, we want you to do two things. We want you to pre-order the book so that you already have it taken care of, so that when it shows up in May, you can get your copy and be blown away. And the second thing we want you to do is make sure that you put your email address in there. Again, it's moneyguy.com/millionaire mission. And when we have your email address, this is going to be the way that we're going to keep you updated on all these perks that Brian just mentioned, all the things that we're kind of ruminating and coming up with as a team. These are the things that we want to be able to communicate to you. And the only way we can do that is if we have your email. So go out to moneyguide.com/millionaire mission. Give us your email address. Pre-order the book, and we are so. Don't you feel like a weight is lifted getting this out?
I know.
Into
How
the
do you
ether
feel?
right now? How
This
does
has
it feel?
been like, I don't know if everyone realizes
I mean,
how
it feels
long
a little
coming
surreal.
this is.
It feels because like I said, it's the worst kept secret of the money guy. I mean, that's why even yesterday. So all of you who are on Twitter or formerly known as Twitter who said book, and I didn't heart it, it's because I was like, gosh, I really have blown this thing because everybody knows it's a book.
That's the fun of it, though.
But it is one of those things where. I sound like Bo. I'm super excited though. I mean, I really am. It is one of those things where this is a life achievement, something I'm very excited about. I hope there's a vulnerability with this because I am revealing a lot of myself, but it's also it's kind of an insecurity when you put something that you've created out of nothing out there for the people. You hope it's well received. I really do. I hope that you guys you'll see my heart and you'll know how much I really want this thing to be well received. I hope that the abundance comes through, and I'm just excited to see where this journey goes. I think it's gonna be fun.
I love it. Ruby, there are all kinds of questions coming here. I don't think we're going to answer, but we ought to make note of these questions. I mean, people are asking questions around like, is there going to be an audiobook or do I buy through Amazon? Or are you going to do a tour? There's all kinds of questions. I'm sure we will be answering those questions at some point in the future.
Honestly, I know Brian has let some of the cats out of the bag, but that's okay, honestly, because I want you to be excited because like Brian said, we are working really hard behind the scenes to cook up all the stuff that you're talking about in the chat. It's just that I don't have an official announcement, but yes, if you go to moneyguide.com/millionaire mission, get on that email list. We're really going to do our best and like be really intentional about updating that specific list with, hey, here's what's happening in the new year. There's going to be a lot of announcements. Like if that exclusive store does get released for people who pre-order, you know, like that's how you're going to know how to redeem all that stuff, what's happening, how you can get the audiobook, all of those things. So I'm really excited that we're finally announcing this today, and I can't wait to share more, honestly, because obviously I know what's going on behind the scenes, and I'm very excited about it, and I truly can't wait to share more. Very proud of you, Brian.
Thank you. And I have one more quick thing to
Yes.
hopefully break the barrier of people scared to give us their email addresses, because there's lots of comments out there on YouTube where people had said, I just hate that these guys ask for email addresses to get the resources and stuff. And you guys have been awesome because you're right, you're like, it's really not that bad. They just basically send out emails when they're doing new content or have announcements. And that's what I want to tell you. We are very purposeful not to spam everybody, but it's primarily so we know who our audience is. Because guys, I have, one of my biggest regrets is that when I started podcasting in 2006, I didn't go to see who my audience was. I didn't ask for email addresses because platforms change constantly. Look at us. We started as a podcast. Now we're podcast, YouTube, but we're on the other socials. Content platforms change every year. We need your email address, not to spam you, but just so we know who you are, so you can be part of the family. And I would encourage you to go on this journey because we take that responsibility very serious.
That's great.
But I love the kind words too. Thank you, Ruby.
Yeah, I'm excited. Listen, we've worked really hard on this, and I'm excited that people finally know. You know the title, you know the cover. You can go to moneyguide.com/millionaire mission, and you can literally click on one of the big retailers and order it. That's huge. So thanks for celebrating with us. Someone said they already pre-ordered it in the chat, and I just want to shout you out because that just warmed my heart. I can't even believe it.
I've seen them. Like they're sending their confirmations right now. That is huge.
Dude, big day. Thank you for celebrating. Thank you for asking all this time and being excited. So, that's the big announcement. The wait is over.
So in that vein, Brian, of overwhelming abundance,
yes,
how would you feel about overwhelmingly abundantly answering some questions? Because we love,
because that's the heart of this.
We get to pour our hearts and souls into the things that we create for you. But we also love that we can speak into the things that matter to you. So right now we've got the team out in the wings collecting your questions in the chat, and our goal is to load you up. So with that, creative director Rebecca, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Let's do this. Okay. We're going to kick it off with a question from Aaron. He says, I hear Brian say Roth accounts are so good that the government limits who can contribute to it based on income. He's definitely listened to you, Brian. But the question is, then why is there a backdoor and a mega Roth? And also, how does one use the backdoor and the mega Roth? Because if it's so good, he's wanting some details on these backdoor options. What do you think?
Well, can I speak to, I'll speak to why is it there, and then you can kind of speak to how do you do it, how do you use it. How's that sound? So the why is it there? Well, a lot of times when legislation is passed or legislation is created, they don't exactly recognize all the different conduits, all the different, I'm going to use the term backdoors or loopholes that may exist. Well, what ended up happening, I don't think the backdoor Roth conversion was ever meant to be a specific strategy. What it was is there has always been the ability for individuals to convert pre-tax dollars to Roth dollars. You could always do that. You could convert IRAs into Roths. And up until about 2010, you could only do that if your income was below $100,000 of income. But then in 2010, the legislation changed and said, hey, even if you make over $100,000 of income, you can still do Roth conversions. Well, just like financial mutants typically do, someone out there said, hey, you know what I could do? I don't have any other IRA balances. If I were to do a non-deductible contribution and I don't have to prorate any of my other IRA balances, is that kind of like a backdoor way for me to do a Roth IRA contribution? And boom, the backdoor Roth was born. I don't know that it was intentionally established to operate the way that it has, but yet here we are, and it is operating that way. It is something that is available, but perhaps won't be available forever.
Yeah, I mean, it was on when legislation, when they've had negotiations on budgets and new legislation, a lot of times this has been on the chopping block. Because they know that this loophole exists. Some people don't like it, so they've actually put it up to take it away, but it's still there. So take advantage of it while it is, but you have to have the right structure. That's the key thing. A lot of people, when we see this sometimes when prospects, they come in they say, I'm doing the back door. And then I find out they have a rollover IRA. I'm like, you're not really doing a back door. You're doing, you're basically just underreporting your income and you're really creating a horrible headache for yourself in the future because we have to unwind this now. So, or figure out how we fix this. So make sure you have the right structure because that's a big part of this. And that leads to, that's the back door. Mega Roth is kind of the same thing in the fact that, the government has what's called 415 limits, is that there's an annual limit on how much you can contribute to like 401k accounts. It's around $66,000.
Yep, that's right.
So, and that's your employee contributions, $22,500 this year. And then you have, and that leaves the rest of the room for your employer. But sometimes your employer is not using all of that 415 limit. So they added a third bucket, just like we have Roth contributions, we have pre-tax contributions, and then we have after-tax contributions. And it's allowed that you can actually fill up the remainder of that 415 limit that's unused by you and your employer, and you can make it after-tax contributions, meaning you're not getting a deduction on your tax return. It's going in after tax. But then there's this crazy, once again, structure set up to where if you allow in-plan conversions or conversions while you're in service, meaning you don't have to retire to withdraw money from your retirement plan, then you can actually take those after-tax contributions and convert them into Roth contributions. Yep. Hence, mega huge Roth opportunities, because there's a lot of room between $22,500 and the $66,000. Now, there is one caveat I got to tell you to be careful of. You can make the contributions throughout the year, and the government will let you pre-fund as much as you want up to that 415 limit. But if your employer goes to put in their contribution, and a lot of times profit sharing and other things don't happen until the end of the year, or even the next year when it's made retro for the prior plan year. If you've already pre-funded that full 415 limit, the employer is like, hot diggity dog, I just saved a ton of money on this employee. So you have to kind of do some coordination and planning to make sure you leave enough room for all three funding sources to kind of happen. You, your employer, and then those extra after-tax contributions that you're going to load it up so you can convert into Roth contribution. Really cool planning opportunities. That's why the biggest thing is make sure you structure these huge things and these unique opportunities well. And that's why this is a really cool opportunity that we do for a lot of our clients. You've never done this before. We've done this hundreds, if not thousands of times for clients that let us help you navigate these things. That's always when I talk about the abundance cycle, this is a perfect point when you're doing these advanced planning things to graduate to the next level with the relationship.
Love it.
That's awesome. Aaron, thank you for being here and thanks for the question. Let's move on to Ken's question. He says, I'm currently in step 9 and we have reached our know your number goal and will retire in 4 years at 55 with a second pension. Should I continue to save 25% until that retirement date? Or should I focus on paying off the mortgage early? I love this question because we're always talking about getting to this point. So like, how should they think about it? Because they're pretty close, which is exciting.
So the language matters. I want you to read the question, just the beginning of it. I want to hear the part where he says his retirement. And this is what I'm trying to discern. Has he calculated that based on his savings, he's going to hit that number? Or here, 4 years away from retirement, he's already there? Can you reread the question
Yeah,
for me?
it says, I'm currently in step 9. We have reached our know your number goal and will retire in 4 years at 55 with a second pension. So it sounds like he's reached it.
He's reached it, is what it sounds like.
We have a culture of compliance here, so I do want to share. We don't know all of Ken's variables. He's
Yes.
given us some key things, so we have to be careful. This is not specific recommendations, but we can, based upon the way the question was answered, give some guidelines if we were kind of like, doing some role playing with a client here. A situation is that obviously if you've reached the number, and I have the goal that I want you to be completely debt-free when you actually cross that threshold of retirement in 4 years. You've got to figure out how between now and then that you are completely debt-free with the mortgage. It's crazy not to. So I'm going to give you the freedom to figure out, is that something over the next 4 years you go do 25% a year, or do you just go whole hog on it and pay off the debt and then come back? But I will tell you this is another guidance that I share with brand new clients who are going through that threshold. You're going to be very insecure that first year to 2 years that you retire, because now when the market goes oopsie and goes down, if you get into that systemic risk of you have a downturn right as you retire, you're going to have a lot of insecurity. So I always tell all of my brand new clients, hit retirement with some momentum, meaning that if you're just like when you see a massive hill in front of you, a lot of times you'll give it a little extra goose the gas, so you hit that hill, and you actually have extra momentum to push you through it. So I'm not going to be telling you don't have to save another dollar from this day, because I think that you could, just like bears. My daughter last night when we went to dinner, she was like, Dad, did you know that there's a competition where they actually take pictures of bears before they go into hibernation, and the fattest one, they wins, they post all these things.
Did not know that.
No, I thought it was the coolest thing. And I wish I could remember the cutesy name that she told me this year's winner was, because there was this cool picture she showed us at dinner last night. And I would tell you, I want you to be the fattest bear heading into your retirement. So load it up, hit some momentum with that. But yes, I do want you to be completely debt free when you hit retirement as well. Give some more details, because I kind of gave overview.
I like the detail of being the fattest bear.
I like that a lot. I like that a whole lot.
But
I do.
There's a but. So
I'll say the first thing, and then I'll say my little controversial thing. My first thing is, what's beautiful, Ken, is when you know your number and when you have reached your number, we call that financial independence. When you are in financial independence, the beautiful thing about being independent is you get to pick and choose what you want to do with your dollars. That's what the dollars have allowed you to do. And so should you continue saving? Well, if you want to. Should you stop saving? Well, if you want to, right? I think you get to choose, once you're at financial independence, how you want to deploy your dollars. This is the only thing that gives me just a little bit of anxiety, and please don't fight me.
So this is the but.
This would be the but. If Ken, I agree. I love for my full retirees, full financial independence folks to be debt-free or have the ability to be debt-free. And this is what I mean. Let's suppose that Ken is in that 2.5% mortgage right now,
Here
Brian.
we go.
He's got that 2.5% mortgage. So long as his liquid assets are robust enough, that money sitting in cash is earning 5%. And so here's what I like about what Brian said. When you come into retirement, you want to hit it with momentum. You want to go whole hog into it. The beautiful thing about having the ability to be debt-free is maybe you do retirement for that first year and say, okay, I got my sea legs about it. Now I'm going to write the check and pay off the mortgage. Okay, you know what? I want to make sure that I can get through these first markets a little soft right now. Okay, now I'm going to pay off the mortgage. I love the idea of having a plan for the mortgage to be gone, but I'm just realistic that right now in this very unique interest rate environment, some flexibility. Now, here's what's beautiful. He did say he's 4 years away, so there's some time to figure this out, but that's one of the things that I would think about and consider as I was going into retirement. Agree, disagree, want to fight with a rebuttal.
But I think you have get wealthy behaviors and you have stay wealthy behaviors.
Yep, I agree with you.
And he's obviously he's behind the get wealthy behaviors. We've already reached that point. So now de-risking before retirement will not only, it goes right in line with the fatten yourself up before you go into hibernation. So I think that now we're splitting hairs and you have to ask yourself, don't get cute.
What are your goals?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably, look, I'm a bridge builder. I will tell you, Bo's not wrong in the fact that me and him have had this debate about my own mortgage. Because I have the goal, I'm about to cross the threshold of 50, and I want to be completely mortgage free. And I have the money to stroke a check right now, but I have a 2.5% mortgage. So I have, instead of writing the check on my birthday, I've got essentially a compartment in my cash reserves that it's not even really part of the cash reserves, that I'm playing an arbitrage game momentarily. But if interest rates ever get dropped below 2.5%, I'm just going to stroke the check. But I don't know if Ken has to do that. I still plan on working
you're not retired.
Decades.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
Ken, I just think while he's in the de-risking side of the stay wealthy part, I think that you're splitting hairs, and it's probably, if it's 4 years away, I mean, I bet this balance is already less than $100,000.
Sure.
And if it's less than $100,000, let's get that thing knocked out.
I'm okay with that. I can live with that.
Well, Ken, you got kind of a hot take.
Here's the
good
difference.
cop, bad cop
Warrior
to your answer.
mode, under 40, sentimental sap, probably a little closer to Ken's. It is amazing. The older you get, the more your perspective changes. It is true. It's just one of those things.
As Bo would say, the more you can't do math.
Perspective might change, but math doesn't.
Congratulations, though, Ken. That is awesome. You're a financial mutant.
Yeah,
By the
honestly,
way, you
that
want
is
to take the
exciting.
relationship to the next level, complete the abundance cycle, go to moneyguy.com or aboundwealth.com, and we have a work with us section.
Heck yeah.
Love it. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about buying a house. People they want to know. They want to know how to buy a house, how to do real estate. The question is from Shillbilly. And the question is, with mortgage interest rates approaching 8%, does it make more sense to put as much down as possible and driving down the principal instead of investing in a brokerage? What do you think?
Well, wait a minute. This is a
I know.
loaded
I don't know
question.
if it's an either
but
or,
I
but
can
you need
give
to
some
talk about that.
clarification
Yeah.
and let Bo give even more detail. Is that realize that there's multiple steps that Shillbilly, just I feel ridiculous even saying that. There's emergency reserves, which is, because that's when you're figuring out down payment. You not only have the down payment, but you have to make sure that you don't exhaust your emergency reserves at 3 to 6 months. And then when you're talking about doing after-tax accounts like savings and investment accounts, that's really a step 7 of the financial order of operations situation. So I think I'll speak in broad terms and then let Bo put the details. I think when you see mortgage interest rates close to 8%, obviously a bigger down payment is better, but you've got to make sure you're not squandering the opportunities of step 4, your emergency reserves, steps 5 and step 6 of the financial order operations. Because like I said, it's a step 7 when you're taking away from an investing in an after-tax account.
Yeah, this one is a really, really hard one, where I'm going to argue that general rules of thumb are more difficult to apply because it really comes down to your personal and unique circumstance, Shillbilly. Because it depends on what does your overall asset picture look like. How much do you have in retirement accounts? How much do you have in after-tax accounts? How much do you have in your emergency reserves? How old are you? How far away from financial independence are you? When will you likely need these dollars? All of these different pieces of the conversation come into play as to whether you should put more money down or not put more money down. Here's what we do know, though. When it comes to buying a house, we have an entire checklist out there. You can go to moneyguy.com/resources, look at our home buying checklist. There are some things that you do need to abide by. You need to make sure that you're going to be in the house for at least 5 to 7 years before you purchase. You need to make sure that if this is a first house, you don't have to put 20% down. But if this is your second home or subsequent homes, 20% your minimum. Like, you better be showing up to the closing table with at least 20%. Any amount above that comes into sort of this nuance that we're talking about. And then you have to make sure, if you do opt for the lower down payment so that you can leave the other assets working for some reason, you got to make sure that the total housing cost does not exceed 25% of your gross income. If you can stay inside those lines, you're going to set yourself up to be in a solid place. But there are a lot of different things to consider as to whether I should be really aggressive with my down payment, or should I liquidate after-tax assets for my down payment? Because I am of the opinion, write this in pencil if you're taking notes, while interest rates are approaching 8% right now, I just don't know that I believe they're going to stay there, Brian. I don't know that I believe that they're going to stay there. I think that realistically, there might be an opportunity in the future where interest rates come down and we're able to refinance. So folks who got that 6.5%, 7.5%, 8% mortgage might be able to refinance at like 5.5%, 5.5%, something like that. While it would have been great to have put a lot of money down and save that 8%, I don't think what I'm going to do at that time is say, oh, well, great, now that rates are lower, let's do a cash out refi and put that money to work, because then you are moving back out on the risk spectrum. That's not something that you'd want to do. So I don't know that having to be like incredibly aggressive, trying to get as much down as possible is absolutely necessary, because I think there will be some opportunities in the future to alleviate that interest rate concern. Whereas, let's say that rates don't come down for 5, 6, 7 years, that money that you took out of your after-tax account to do that down payment has not been working for you for 5, 6, 7 years. So it's just something to consider, but it's really nuanced. This is for sure like one of those take the relationship to the next level type questions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a great question though, and it's definitely something that's sitting out there in a lot of people's mind, but we gave, Shillbilly a lot of things to think about.
That's great. Well, Shillbilly or anyone else who ever do want to take the relationship to the next level, moneyguy.com, click on the Become a Client thing. You can learn more about it there.
By the way, I got a text.
Yeah?
There's some important people in my life that have actually joined, that were in the chat. I don't know if they're still in the chat, but I mean, people who never check out. So all my secrets that I normally don't have to worry about any retribution, coming back to me. Because of this book launch, they knew how important it was. They showed up. And hopefully I'm on my best behavior too.
I think I know who that is.
I think I know too.
I think, hey, I think I know who that is.
You're funny. That's awesome though. It's a good day. All right, you ready for the next question?
I am.
This one's from we got some good usernames today. Cyber Tony.
You think that's a good one?
Cyber Tony.
Some good ones
Cyber
for
Tony? I thought you said Cyber Toe Me, and I was like, Toe Me? What's is
toe? Like the toe on your
T-O-E.
foot.
It is toe
knee,
me.
like your knee.
K-E.
Cyber toe knee.
It's like the phonetic way that you would
But
spell
I think it's Cyber Tony.
Cyber Toe Knee.
Cyber Tony.
Okay, spent too much time on that. You're welcome,
Oh,
Cyber
it
Tony.
is Tony. I get it now. Oh, wow.
He got us going.
Okay, keep it going. Old Tony.
Okay, here's his question. He says, does it ever make sense to finance a large purchase at 0% APR when you have cash to pay it off right away? A common tactic I see is moving that cash to a high yield savings account to get that extra 4 to 5% yield. This is a popular question for us lately.
It's a very popular question. Brian, do you want to take this? I mean, I've got some thoughts here, but
I'll start off. I mean, because look, I'm one of those people. This is even in my brain right now, in the fact that I make. I don't mind sharing this. I make estimated tax payments every quarter to the government, and I've always told my CPA, the CPA firm that bought my tax prep, still does my taxes, and I'm always like, look, I don't care. I want to pay 100% of what I think my taxes are for this year. Even though I could do safe harbor and 110% of last year, I just want to go ahead and estimate. Let's run a tax projection. Let's prepay it. Interest rates are high enough now that I'm actually just paying the safe harbor.
You just
now,
paying the minimum.
I feel like I am naked to the world right now and to the IRS, because I'm hoping that when I get to April of next year, that I have enough pot of money to cover everything and anything. And I'm running still projections in the background, so I'm not going to be caught completely off on this, but it is when cash is paying over 5%, it is definitely something, or right around 5%, that I can understand people wanting to do this arbitrage. Now, what I would love for you to address, though, is just like we did that personal audit on Caleb, and he was out there doing Ashley furniture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, arbitrage on short-term stuff just doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense.
That's what I was going to say. It really depends on the impact of the decision that you're making. And so like estimated taxes, those can be substantial sums of money, and you think about substantial sums of money at 5% is material. It's a material impact to someone's financial situation. If you're talking about a large purchase, like, hey, I can buy my $1,500 iPhone and I can do 0% for 12 months and I can invest that. Like, is that worth it? It just seems to me that the risk of, I missed a payment, something glitched with my email, whatever, and then all that interest accrues, and you had to waste mental calories to try to finesse that arbitrage situation. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to do an arbitrage like what you said, but if it's an immaterial, if it's a low impact thing, I just think, man, is it really worth it? I mean, yeah, you could do it, but what are we talking about here? Are we talking about $40 over the course of a year? It may not be worth the effort and the attention you're putting into it. And something like, if he said finance a large purchase, I'm gonna assume this is like a consumer purchase. Let's say it is like Ashley Furniture or something like that. It's pretty risky if that goes bad. If something goes wrong, I love that. All the comments on that video we did, they said, you know what, you'll screw up one time and you'll never do it again.
Yeah.
You'll never, ever do it again. I just don't know that it's entirely worth it, in my opinion.
You said it, and that's why we share a brain. Materiality of the situation, like how big is the opportunity cost and the incremental decision, and then what is the risk that is also running in the background. And that was our point really with the Ashley Furniture is that all those furniture type deals where they offer you 0%, if you could, I would love, I don't know if it's publicly out there, and we ought to research this because it'd be a great show topic for a Q&A intro. What percentage of like Rooms to Go and Ashley Furniture are those 0% deals actually end up collecting interest?
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be publicly available, but I bet it's very lucrative. There's a reason. I mean, there were seasons of my life where it felt like that they were doing these deals for over 18 months. And you're like, holy cow, they're getting into years of letting people have 0%. But be careful of those arbitrage situations because some of them can be Wile E. Coyote type traps. And just because you watched Roadrunner all your life and they blew through everything and it never caught them, there's a lot of traps that do trigger and catch people financially.
Brian, you say this all the time. Don't try to find complexity. Complexity will find you. And I found, like in my personal financial situation, things just get more complicated. And the less things I have to think about, the less things I have to worry about, the better things operate. And so I would encourage you, before you go into that, if you have the cash where you could just stroke a check and pay for it, I'd give some serious consideration to doing that.
That's great. Well, Cyber Tony, thanks for the question. I hope that helps you out.
Cyber Tony.
Cyber Tony.
Yep, you got it. You got it.
A little slower than everybody else.
Okay, Tyler's question is next. And this is another one that we've been getting some version of this a lot. So I think we got to talk about it. It says, how do you guys reconcile increased spending during the messy middle with requiring a 25% savings and investing rate? I know we did a show that's going to be coming out soon, all about the messy middle, but let's tease it. Let's talk about this because it's a good question. It can feel like there's a lot of things pulling at your wallet.
Yeah, man, we get this all the time. Guys, you seem so sensitive. You seem so sensitive because you tell us about the messy middle and how there's these thousands of different things pulling you in thousands of different directions. You've got no discretionary time. You got no discretionary income. And yet, in that same vein, you say, oh, well, you got to save 25%. You got to save 25%. I think it's interesting. He says, how do we reconcile the fact and the you must? It's not a you must save 25%. Let me go and tell you, me and Brian are not policing it. If you do your net worth statement, you did not save 25% this year, we're not going to show up at your front door and knock on the door and be like, hey, what do you have to save for you, Mr. Mutant? Why did you not do this? That's not the way that it works. However, if what you're trying to do is accomplish the goals in life that you want your money to allow you to be able to do, financial independence, travel, kids, college, all the things, whatever those things are for you, getting into the habit of saving 25% of your gross income as early as possible will likely be the most effective way for you to be able to accomplish those goals. Well, the reason why we tell people to do that in the messy middle, because in the messy middle, your dollars still have a lot of juice. Brian, you have the wealth multiplier thing you go to. If you go to our website, you go to moneyguy.com/resources. Wow. We have the wealth multiplier that shows.
We didn't two-side that one.
We just need to show
We
the
gotta
front page
fix
of that one. That shows just how valuable your dollars. That shows just how valuable your dollars can be in the messy middle. So that's why we tell you aspire to 25%. But I'll be honest, there are folks that maybe just can't do it. Maybe during this season, 20% is what you can do. That's great. That's great. Figure out when you get a pay raise, how can I go from 20 to 21? Maybe I'm only doing, I'm doing 15%. That's great. Save something, and your goal, the horizon line that you ought to be moving towards, is 25%. But if you're not there today, it's okay to give yourself a little bit of grace and give yourself a little bit of slack, because the destination is what we want to focus on, but the journey kind of matters. This thing that we're doing in the here and now is also important, and you need to give yourself some grace understanding that.
I'm going to be a little harder in the fact that
no.
no, because I had the words of my freshman year basketball coach, Coach Corley. One day I was, because he's just yelling at me all the time, and he was like, Preston, if I wasn't yelling at you, it means I've given up on you. So, and I think that goes for the messy middle people too, is that, look, I tell people I give the grace to my 20-somethings because you're figuring out the career, you're figuring out how you make money. But by the time you get in your 30s where you're fully immersed into the messy middle, if you don't have somebody yelling that you need to be at 25% because time is of the essence to get up to 25%, because the most valuable ingredient to the wealth creation process is time. How can you let that money start working for you and just do its magical stuff with compounding growth? If you're not feeling the pressure on that because we've gone too soft on you, I don't get the best version of you. So if you are feeling like we give you so much grace with the messy middle that you actually take the pressure off yourself, you're actually taking from your future self. And that's a pressure I need you to feel the weight of. So I want you, if you do take that moment, because I'm guilty of this in the messy middle, where wasn't like when I was starting my company, I had to quit saving and other things because my priorities at that time were getting the company off the ground. But all through that process, I was scared to death. And I knew that there was a clock without knowing what the timer or the buzzer was going to ring on it was going to be. So I felt that pressure to where it got the best version to correct what was going on. Because if grace can be a great thing if you all, forgiveness, we all need that. We all need to know that there's 1,000 ways to create success. But in the background, if you don't feel like that bear of failure is chasing you down, you'll never do what you have to, the hard stuff. That's the thing. One of the things I talk about in Millionaire Mission is that I ask questions that I'm constantly asking myself. And one of the things I always ask myself, am I doing the stuff nobody else wants to do? And that's the thing that you have to ask yourself if you're in the messy middle is, am I cutting expenses to the bone? Am I actually working jobs and picking up extra shifts and hours so that I can increase my income if I can't cut my expenses anymore because they're already down to the bone? That's the pressure. And I want to harness my inner Coach Corley on you and just tell you, hey, if I'm not yelling at you, then I've given up on you, and you need to put the same pressure on yourself.
I was not expecting that.
I was not either, going to be honest with you.
Spoken like someone who's truly not in the messy middle.
Well, it is.
But can I say, you're not wrong.
I've been in the messy middle.
There is a place for that, so I liked it.
I'm beyond
I
the
liked
messy
it.
middle.
I liked it.
True statement.
All right. That
all right.
was Tyler's question. Tyler, you got Brian on a little
I love it.
a little pep talk there.
Feisty Brian right
yeah, feisty pep talk, Brian.
Well, I got to tell you, when Coach Crowley told me that, it warmed my heart a little bit because I was like, man, this man's yelling at me, and he's like, and I was like, oh, he cares.
He likes me.
yeah, no, that is
There's
true.
a little inversion there of what you think because you're like, that's son
When
of a
Bo
gun.
said, we're not going to show up knocking on your door, like, why aren't you saving 25%? Someone said, but Brian's seriously thinking about it.
But
Like,
yeah,
he's
Brian,
considering it.
When I said Brian might be there, so you better
Brian might.
shape up.
And it would be a tough love
Touche.
pep talk, like from the most genuine place. So I feel like we just got a little taste of that, which is not a bad thing. All right, we're going to move on to E-Money's question next. It says, if you are dollar cost averaging into index funds to save for a future home purchase, should you dollar cost average out of them too? And how far before the home purchase should you be doing this? Because I think we've mentioned how long you should be saving if you're going to invest it, but maybe we should talk about that too. Like, is this a good way to save for a home?
Yeah, this one is a little interesting, and it's a little bit nuanced. And I want to remind you of some of the things that we've said in the past. If you have a purchase that you know the timeline on, that you know you're going to make, and it's a large purchase inside of the next 5 years, so really inside the next 60 months, cash is king. Like, you want to have cash in hand for that purchase, just because we don't know what the markets are going to do. What if at the time when you actually need the cash, the market's down and you've got your dollars invested? You don't have as much available as you should. But then you've also heard us say, hey, if you're saving for a house, but it's an indiscriminate amount of time, you don't know when you're going to close, perhaps you should consider saving some in cash, but also dollar cost averaging, buying a specified amount on a specified timetable to begin building those dollars, often like monthly. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but then you have to think about the other side of the equation. How do I start getting the money out? Now, Brian, my answer for it is going to be pretty simple, I think. If you know when the house purchase is going to happen, then I think that you want to go ahead and try to get to cash because, one in the hand is worth two in the bush. We don't know what the market is going to do tomorrow. We don't know if the market's going to go up or down. So if you know that you're closing on a house in 12 months, I'm a proponent that I would really think through, man, I need that cash available right now. If, however, you're thinking, all right, I'm looking at houses, I don't know when I'm going to make an offer, I don't know when the house is going to become available, then I do think that potentially could be a time when you would consider reverse dollar cost averaging out of the position so that you are slowly building up cash over time. You agree with that or disagree completely?
No, I think you laid it out. The only thing I can add is just giving an experience share on the fact of even with this building, you have to. I think everybody has to be a good incremental decision maker, and I was running very fat on cash, so I had the majority of the down payment for my portion of this building. But it was going to start bumping into emergency reserves to the point that I felt like I needed to go sell some after-tax investments just to boost up because I was never, ever, ever, after post-2008, going to get caught not having a full emergency reserves in my life. And that was one of those things where I knew I had 6 months of maybe it was really 4 months of due diligence time. I did dollar cost average out of the part that was just going to boost my emergency reserves, but it was one of those things.
But the
where
money you had for the down payment was there.
The money was already there.
Yep.
It was more of just an incremental decision because also, and that was the point I was going to make is that you have to look around at all the things going on. And the stock market post pandemic was down over 20%. So to go and sell that all at once also felt kind of like, man, I hate that these assets are down so much right now when I just got this great building under contract. How about if I, over the next 3 months, since I've already got the down payment, this is more of just
trying
to create an incremental decision opportunity cost analysis to find a good situation there. But I think you were exactly right. I mean, most people, the easiest decision, don't get cute. I mean, I'm really nerdy. And I beat myself up a ton, so you can look at yourself and self-reflect to figure it out. But for the majority of people, because the majority of people are not financial mutants, unfortunately, if you're getting so close to the purchase, don't get cute.
That's right. I love it.
That's great. All right, we're going to move on to Maddie B 1023's question. Why does Brian not include pension contributions in the 25% savings rate if household income is over $200K per year? Can he elaborate? Thank you. I also like that only Brian is getting
I've
credit
got,
for this.
Maddie
Or really,
B 1023. I guess my team
Brian,
doesn't
you
matter.
have to answer for this one.
Hey, but why do you not include pension contributions in the 25% for folks that make over $200,000 of household income?
Well, it's not. He says pension, but it's actually any employer contribution once your household income is over 200,000. The why is pretty important. Is that look? Because I know the goal of saving 25%. That's a pretty steep barrier for most people, and I give a lot of grace for households under 200,000 because you're closer to the social safety net. Social Security is going to have one heck of an impact on your retirement when you make less than that, and I know how hard it is to get to 25%. So I tell people, yeah, if your employer is putting in a 6% match, count that towards your 25%, because that all goes towards it. However, the person who has $200,000 of household income coming in, you've got money coming in. And there's a responsibility that once you have reached a level of success at your multiple six figures, you need to be taking that responsibility and understand that the burden of what you make is really on your shoulders. Because if you make $200,000 and you can't save 25%, I'm going to argue you probably spend enough that when you actually remove the training wheels of your, well, it's not even really training. When you remove the food source of your job away from you at retirement, if you have not built up enough underneath you of your army of dollars working for you so you don't have to use your brain, your hands, and your back, then you're going to have a horrible situation. And my goal as your tour guide and your coach and everything else that we try to be here at the Money Guy Show is to make sure you get the best version of yourself. And so you better take that responsibility serious, because if you can't get a 25% at $200,000, you need to take a cold, hard look at what the heck am I doing with my savings. And because the worst case in my situation is you get to retirement and you've done 25% plus you've got your employer's portion, whether it's pension, whether it's match on a 401k, and it's gravy. I have yet in all of our wealth surveys we do every year, and this thing's been going on now years, is nobody says, man, I wish I'd have spent a little more in my 20s and 30s and 40s. No, every time, without a doubt, one of our most popular comments when we leave the open section is, I wish I'd have somebody would have told my younger self to do exactly what you guys talk about on the Money Guy Show. Save as early and often as you can, because it's going to let you be the best version of your retired self in the future.
You just said something there that I think is worth mentioning. When a dollar comes into our possession, there's only three things that we can choose to do with it. We only have three options. We can give it away, we can save it, or we can spend it. You said it perfectly, Brian. If you're not saving it and you're not giving it away, then your lifestyle is increasing. And then the onus of what you will need to, or the volume of what you will need to replace when you get to retirement is now higher. And so you have an even larger onus to save more. In your worst case scenario, you end up retiring early because you saved 25% and you had the pension. I mean, that's not a super bad worst case scenario. I just want to say something because Maddie B tried to exclude me from this question. That's why I put it out there.
Only Brian.
I don't really think he excluded
No,
you.
he wanted to know why you said that. Thank you for your question, Maddie B.
Okay. Are you ready for a spicy question? Maybe. It's a little spicy. We'll see. It says, what's the point of saving 25% for retirement to replace all of our income when expenses will likely decrease from the already self-imposed scarcity of pre-retirement spending? So what's the point? Why save 25%? Especially if I think my expenses are going to decrease in the future.
Yeah, man,
Can I let you have the analytical and I do the emotional part at the beginning?
Yes, you can. What was the name?
Seth.
Seth, I want to tell you a little story. I thought I was going to retire at 50. No, I mean, yeah, not Will Smith. I thought I was going to retire at 50 years of age. So when I was in my early 20s, I started saving and investing like I was going to retire when I was in my 50. When I hit 50, I'm soon to cross the threshold of 50. I am no closer to retirement than the man in the moon. There's a chance I might be doing this on the day that they roll me out on the gurney. Because I just love this. I absolutely love it. But I'll tell you what, if you can save and invest that 25% as early as you possibly can, Seth, You get to live life on your terms. You own your time sooner. And you get to have choices and options. Right now, when you're young and you're starting out or whatever, even if you're in the messy middle, you feel like you don't own your time. You feel like you have to go work for the man to get your money. And it's a tough situation. So if I can get you to do a little bit more earlier so that you then do things on your terms, you work because you want to work, that's a very powerful thing. It's a very flexible thing. Now, what's crazy for me is the things that I spend money on typically even come back. Like when I make a crazy investment on us doing this studio, so you guys get a better version, more of you show up. You know, it's the coolest thing. I'd rather have the flex in the system, the margin to where I get to do things on my terms than to be so tight and scarce with resources that I have to do it on somebody else's terms. That's what we're trying to do for you, Seth, is give you the margin to live your best life.
Now, we take a lot of flack on this when we do fire content, right? We've done a lot of fire content there. People are like, oh my gosh, why are you talking about income replacement? We should talk about expenses. You are correct. When it comes to retirement, when it comes to financial independence, expenses are the thing that matters, not percentage of pre-retirement income. Here's the real problem. For most people, they don't have an accurate view of what their expenses will be in retirement. So you know what the best metric of what your current lifestyle expenses are? The percentage of your income that you're out there spending. So it's just a really easy number for us to get our heads wrapped around to help us start moving towards the number. So the question is, all right, well, why do you guys save 25%? Well, it's fairly mathematical. Nate, can you pull up the thing? We have a resource that you can go check out at moneyguide.com/resources. It's called What Can 25% Do For You, right? And basically what it said is different ages. You don't have that one over there. I wasn't going to tell you. Basically what it shows is at different ages and stages, if you start saving 25%, how much of your pre-retirement income could you replace? Now, we've already said that pre-retirement income may not be the best metric. It's really more about the expenses that you're going to the expenses that you will have in retirement. Well, what 25% allows you to do is get closer and closer to that stage where you actually know what your retirement expenses are going to be. Your mortgage is paid off. You know where you're going to live. Your kids are out of the house. You know what you do for fun. You know what kind of cars you drive. You know how much you like to travel. Well, saving 25% is going to be a great method to get you to whatever the number is needed to replace those expenses. If instead you say, well, I'm not going to save 25%. I'm super tight. I'm only going to save 10% of my income. Well, that extra 15% is going somewhere. You're doing something with it, and I'm arguing you're likely going to be spending those dollars. So that's what the point of 25% is. We actually want to set you up for a realistic retirement financial independence scenario, because, Brian, we see this all the time. Someone says, hey, I'm retiring at 65. We're like, awesome, cool. What have you been doing? Oh, well, I've been putting money in my 401k, got about 200 grand in there. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, what are you going to do when you're retired? Oh, well, I got to get a beach house, and we're going to get a boat because I wanted to boat. And then I want to travel. You know, we kind of travel bugs, want to wander less. And we're like, hey, the things that you want and the things that you've done to prepare for what you want do not align. If you can figure out 25% early on in your financial journey, you have a much greater likelihood of being able to do all those things that you want to do in retirement when you actually figure out what your true retirement expenses are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole show we could do, is that I think a lot of people don't understand. Yet you're right. Your expenses will go down post 80, 85 because you're just not as mobile. But it's not uncommon for retirees in the first few years to actually spend more money than they actually made right before retirement, because you are doing more traveling, you're playing a lot more golf, you're doing a lot of activities. Plus, you don't realize how much work keeps you from spending money.
Keeps you from spending money. That's exactly right.
When you no longer have work, you might be surprised, especially when you're in those super active years. You might need more of those resources than you realize. So I'd rather you, once again, be fat on having money underneath you than being super lean and, staring at your significant other going, man, if we just saved a little bit more, like those guys said,
maybe we could be doing more stuff.
We'd have a lot more fun out here instead of doing this super lean, retirement that we're doing.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, that's why 25% is a great saving and investing goal. So there you go, Seth. Okay, next up is Jordan's question. It says, can you explain the difference between Roth and after tax? Isn't Roth taken after taxes? What's the difference? Yeah, this is a good question.
You know, this is really interesting vocabulary because sometimes we will talk about step 7 of the financial order of operations. If you don't know what that is, you can go to moneyguide.com/resources, step 7. And we talk about you might want to start saving in your after-tax bucket. That's language that we use. Now, we've tried to get better about not calling it your after-tax bucket and calling it your taxable bucket so as not to be confusing. Because another piece of language we use is when we talk about 401k contributions and folks that can do the mega backdoor Roth, we talk about how there are 3 different ways that you can put money into your 401k, or 3 different ways that some people can. You can do pre-tax, you can do Roth, or you can do after-tax. So it's confusing when you talk about this after-tax as it relates to 401ks and also talk about step 7 taxable brokerage account as after-tax. So we're going to first discern that those are 2 different things, right? Now, I think what his real question is not about the after-tax brokerage account. I just thought it was worth addressing. His real question is, when it comes to like 401k and thinking about that, what's the difference in the after-tax dollars that you're talking about, and what's the difference in Roth dollars, because aren't Roth also indeed after-tax? And then maybe he's talking about Roth IRAs versus after-tax brokerage, and you can speak to that too.
Yeah.
But that's the question, I think.
Well, I think if you're putting this in some priority, Roth is a legal thing set up by legislation. Our government set up where these are heavily tax-favored accounts to the point that they put income limits as well as annual contribution limits. So when you're thinking about in terms of Roth contributions, that's somebody who's trying to load up the designated contributions you can make to these legal setup accounts, these tax-free growing, or they grow tax-deferred, but if you actually use them for retirement, you get to make withdrawals completely tax-free, which is super powerful. But you're limited. Like in 2023, those under 50, it's 22,500. Now, I'll give this both ways, is that in 401ks, I've talked about this earlier with the mega Roth conversions. If you have an employer who's very proactive in the structure of their retirement plan and they create mega backdoor Roth contributions, that means they have 3 baskets. They have the pre-tax, they have the Roth, and then they have the after-tax. And you can fund all the way up to $66,000. That's the employer, the employee, and then the after-tax, which is still you, but it's just got a different designation.
It's not a salary deferral technically.
Right, it's not a salary deferral anymore. That you can take that all the way up to the full $66,000, and then through structure of doing conversions, you can actually turn that into Roth accounts where they grow tax-free. Now, if you're trying to say the other side of this, because it's all about the language of the way the question was asked, what's the difference in step 7 between the Roth and after-tax, meaning a taxable brokerage account? It's back to what Bo said. First, you have to do the Roth is the tax-favored, set up by the government with all those limitations of who gets to do it. You're going to want to maximize that. That's why it's a step 5 of the financial order of operations, is because we want to take advantage of all the things our favorite taxing Uncle Sam is giving us. But then I love taxable brokerage accounts in step 7 of the financial order of operations, because it allows you to have easy, unlimited access. Plus, there's some tax-favored stuff with your interest and your dividends. That's why it's nice to have all 3 pots of money kind of harnessed so you can legally manipulate how you get access to your money in retirement.
I love it. Katie, I'm going to try to give you a really quick, easy little sound bite right here. Are you ready for this? All right, pre-tax, money goes in, you get a tax deduction. Your dollars grow tax-deferred. When you pull them out, you pay taxes. Roth, you get no tax benefit. No tax benefit this year. The dollars grow tax deferred. When you pull them out, they are tax free. After tax 401k contributions, you do not get a tax benefit this year. The dollars grow tax deferred. When you pull them out, you then pay tax. After tax brokerage or taxable investment account, you pay tax every year as the dollars grow.
If only you didn't have to breathe.
I know, right?
Love it. Jordan, thanks for the question. Okay, the next question is from Steve Gerbs.
What was that?
Is that inside? I don't get that one.
Steve Gerbs. Did you
that
say it on purpose
is
like
that a
that?
inside
Nope,
joke?
that's the
Gerbs?
literal. That's the name. Steve Gerbs.
But the way you said it,
Is that an inside joke?
but did y'all hear it? The inflection on the gerbs just goes up.
I'm sorry. I think it reminded me of Steve Jobs, but in some weird way of saying it. I don't know.
You figure you had
can cut
alphafied
all
or
this
something,
out.
or
I just
That was
didn't
a joke I
know.
didn't get.
okay, we'll keep
Just, we
going.
got some interesting usernames
Poor
today,
Steve.
and I'm
Steve.
feeling.
Steve. I don't know why she's saying your last name like that, but we'll just give it a
It
revision.
literally says
amazing.
Steve Gerbs.
Gerbs.
Oh, there your voice does
Is
it
this a
naturally.
play
It's a
on-
really cool thing. I love the inflection.
guys
It's
of it.
not
all
a
hear
play
it,
on
right?
Steve Jobs. I think it is.
But you say jobs low, like normal, like
Gerbs.
you're saying gerbs just all of a sudden goes up an octave or something.
I feel very vulnerable today with all these usernames. You guys are really throwing me for a loop here. Okay. So, Steve has a question. I'm sorry, I'm dying. Okay. It says, I'm 28. I have $70K in private student loans and about $70K in my company 401k. They match 100% up to 7%. Would it be worth withdrawing what I have to pay down the student loan in the next year? Discuss.
They give interest rate.
What? Would it be worth drawing? Like, is he about taking money out of his 401k?
Yeah.
I mean, if, truthfully, you don't even need interest rate. I wouldn't take money out of my.
I was gonna
401k.
say, what do you? I know what you're gonna say.
So I think the question is, hey, I've got this student loan debt, but I've also got these retirement assets, right? And my employer does a 7% match, 100% up to 7 is what he said, right? So my employer's like putting money in this. Should I be clever and maybe start taking some money out of this 401k and use that to satisfy the student loans? Brian, what are some of the issues with people pulling out, especially young people at the age of 28, pulling money out of 401k? So let's just start with that part, and then we can talk about the student loan.
Well, I mean, when you're 28 years of age, you have the most powerful ingredient to wealth creation, which is time. So if you take money out in your 20s, that money essentially you just killed that your army of dollars. I mean, because they now don't have the potential to grow upon themselves in a very, powerful way. I mean, think about that. 20-something-year-old person making that type of decision. That might feel good. And this is the problem with all bad things in life. In the short term, they feel really good. I mean, you make bad decisions, whether you're talking about overeating, if you're talking about going out there and buying a new outfit, or even buying the latest new gadget that causes you not to save or do things, it all feels so good in the short term. And that's why people who are very logical, and addictions and other things kind of reach these bridges where it makes sense right now. But because we are as humans wired in this instant gratification or present bias. But the reality is you're robbing your future self. And the skill set of deferred gratification is the most valuable thing because it allows you to leverage that component of time and the compounding growth. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, but he has $70,000 of private student loans. This is the part where, once again, Coach Corley shows up. And I yell at people to, yes, this is where incremental decision, you have to put a fire under the fact that not only, and this is where the messy middle comes from, do you have to save for your future self, but you do have to extinguish those high interest debts like the student loans and other things, especially if they're unfavorable. Get creative. And I know that sounds so much easier to say than to actually do, but you got to figure out how you cut your expenses to the bone. How do you actually save more by earning more? Because you really only have two choices: cut expenses, or you have to make more money. But going and robbing your future self by taking retirement assets is a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah, not only are you taking them off the field, one of the things that really concerns me is that retirement assets are specifically designed for retirement. So much so that if you were to pull these dollars out at age 28, you know what happens?
No.
You got to pay taxes on them. So you're pulling money
And penalties.
out. You got to pay taxes, and you're going to get hit with a penalty. So everyone's like, some people think, well, what are the interest rates on student loans? Are private? They could be pretty bad. Well, let's say that you're in like the 15% of marginal tax bracket. Maybe you live in a state that's 5, so you've got, let's say 17% on your. Then you got a 10%, but the 27. I bet those student loans aren't at 27% because that's essentially the penalty you would pay, the cost of getting access to those dollars. I just don't think that pulling money out of retirement makes sense almost in any scenario, especially to pay for like student loans, because it's so costly for young folks to do that because of the taxes and penalties.
Great question and great answer. And Steve Jobs did confirm.
She still does it. She doesn't
that
hear it, but she does it.
How else am I supposed to say it?
It's got to be like the way when I
It's
say
supposed to
water
be
or
Steve
naked.
Jobs.
You know, people. I think I'm saying it normal, but obviously since it
It's
doesn't.
supposed to be Steve Jobs, but said in a funny way. Like, oh my God, it's Steve Jobs. That was for you.
Mm-hmm.
We got her to do an accent. Do you have any British accents, Ray?
Yeah, can you do British?
No.
you
You all
scared
can
me.
watch the Caleb Hammer audit for the accents. Watch till the end. All right. Now that that's out of the way,
Gerbs.
Steve Jobs.
let's move on to Joel's question. It's a little spicy. Got another spicy one. It says, is it okay to decrease my investing if I'm projected to reach my goal? I got my master's, got the promotion guaranteeing my pension, and my money is in a good spot. Is it time for YOLO?
Man,
What do you think?
so I've got some dear friends of mine, Brian, and they're very high income, and they're really good savers. And what they did is they said, hey, Bo, we figured this out. We were really aggressive in our 20s, and we saved a lot of money. And I understand how time value of money works. I understand how compound interest works. And we figured out that, like, based on what we saved, if we can just save, I'm going to make up, but if we can just save 5% of our money from now until we get to 65, then we're going to have a gazillion dollars, or we're going to be completely financially independent. So I just don't think we need to be saving that much. I don't think it's something we should focus on. I feel like that's what Joel is saying right here. Hey, can I decrease my investing? Because I've put together a projection that says that things are going to be all right. Well, Brian, do projections of what we think are going to happen, especially for younger folks. Like I'm thinking like 24-year-old Brian projecting what 50-year-old Brian was going to look like. Do things always go the exact way that we think they're going to go? And is that something we could bank our financial future on?
No, I think I see your point is that, and there's been some famous fire people who have had to go back to work because what they retired in their late 30s, sometimes even early 40s, and then once kids came on the scene, it completely blew up a lot of the projections. I do agree that you need to be careful thinking your moment in time is going to be static forever. But I do also want to give a little grace in the fact that I've had a lot of comments come through and people reach out through social media platforms where they're living the miser lifestyle, where they are maybe in their 40s and they're starting to they have really made all the sacrifices in their 20s and 30s, and they built up a nice basket underneath them, and they even maybe have gone to learn.moneyguy.com and looked at the Know Your Number course. Like, well, gosh, I have reached my goals. If you're a person who's lived so lean that you feel like, man, I have family cussing while we don't do better vacations, or while we're, doing everything so cheap on everything, then I do want to encourage people, use the resources we talk about to kind of take a measure of where you are with things. But I worry about with somebody like Joel who just says, I've done some analysis and I'm okay just doing, if I start, pulling back and going YOLO, just don't blow up your living expenses to where you now can't live off of what you think you could, what you projected. Because as we often get told by you listeners, is that it's not your income that matters in retirement, it's the expenses. But what you have to be very careful of is, and I've dealt with some very successful people who have incredible incomes, but then you find out what they're spending. You're like, what in the world? I mean, how are you spending this much money with this level of income? Is that you can get, because it's all about, we live in a consumption society. There are plenty of people. You don't have to be playing Brewster's Millions. There are plenty of ways for you to blow through whatever your level of income is. So I just need you to have that voice in the back of your head, is that, what's the why? What's the plan? Have I actually done all the measurements to make sure that when I am going to go live my better life, because that's what 25% is supposed to be, a liberation thing. Because once you've done the 25%, you can actually now live life on your terms. And that's why I like step 8 of prepaid expenses or abundance goals. If you want to, start, saving for the kids, or driving the fancier car, or start getting into rental real estate and all these other things, or buy the vacation property, That's what that 25% is supposed to liberate you from. But I don't know, without knowing more of your details, Joel, just be careful, be very cautious of just saying, you know what, I think I'm going to cut down on all of my saving and investing because I think I've done enough. Maybe you have, but just that's something you need to measure twice, cut once on, because I don't want your consumption to get to a point that what you thought was safety actually turns out to be a trap in the long term.
And life kind of comes at you hard. Man, Brian, you and I have had to make financial decisions in the past couple of years where I said, man, if our 25-year-old versions of ourselves knew that these were the decisions we made, like what we thought the future was going to look like back then versus what the present day looks like, it's just very, very different. I think that happens to a lot of us, especially, Joel, if you are younger and your kids aren't grown, or maybe you don't have kids yet, or maybe you don't have all that stuff figured out. I just know that the expenses, what I thought I would have needed to retire when I was 25 years old versus what would be necessary to retire today versus what will probably be necessary to retire 25 years from now, it just shifts and it changes. And I think that's something you should be realistic on. The good news about 25% is it will allow you to move with those changes, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
This has been an exciting live stream. Honestly, really fun, good questions, good conversation. We just appreciate you being here, not only to keep the conversation about personal finance and wealth building going, but also to celebrate the announcement of Brian's book, Millionaire Mission. So thanks to everyone who asked a question. Thanks to everyone who's pre-ordered. If you're still interested in doing that, you can go to moneyguy.com/millionaire mission.
Millionaire Mission!
Both pre-order and sign up for the Millionaire Mission email list so you can be the first to know about pre-order perks, special announcements regarding the books, and all the things that you're going to want to know, because we've got a lot of stuff planned that, again, can't give all the details on yet, but that email list will be getting the details as they come up. So thanks again for celebrating with us, and go check out Millionaire Mission.
Guys, big day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully, I can't wait to hear the feedback on Millionaire Mission. Look, a lot of you guys know the fundamental thing of the Money Guy Show is the financial order of operations. So go respect the foo by buying and pre-ordering your copy of Millionaire Mission today. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen, Reby, and the rest of the content team, Money Guy team, out.